It's kind of crazy. A man as busy as the author of a Song in Ice and Fire series, George R.R. Martin, finds such a reliable amount of time every month to complain about his inability to finish the books. It's a wild phenomenon that he has mastered. Finishing a story, outsourcing his problems. Like, the man is a master at a multitude of things. And so, because it's been a couple of days since he ran his mouth about potentially never finishing The Winds of Winter, and that's okay. Now he's making more excuses. Do I steal them? I beg your pardon. We might have got Winds of Winter on our hands if George R.R. Martin hadn't set an ethical rule for Game of Thrones. Oh, what are we talking about right here? Truly feels like centuries, and now just waiting for George R.R. Martin to drop his long overdue 6th novel. Yeah, it's only been 13 years, and Daenerys has been in Marines since the Clinton administration. Jon Snow has been bleeding out through 4 different presidencies. At the beginning of the year, it's a wild time. The book in question has been in progress since around 2010, sure it has been, and he's still working on it. I bet he is, in between dealing with many other projects on his plate. Yeah, he's just so busy, guys, complaining about the projects that he didn't have a big enough hand in, like House of the Dragon Season 2. He loved the first season, everything that happened there, but he complained about simultaneously being ignored and then not in the writer's room for Season 2. But he's really optimistic about Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, but to be honest, so am I. What would fans do then while waiting for Martin to finish his book? Well, the same thing that they've been doing. I don't know, just passively consuming Song of Ice and Fire content, mostly forgetting about Game of Thrones after it released and after it concluded, rather, in 2019, and only peaked up once again when House of the Dragon first dropped. And now, I guess maybe they're on a little bit more of a constant drip feed, and maybe that's leading to why there are so many people talking about why George has yet to finish the books. Why was it when the world was locked down he didn't go to his cabin and finish the book? He had nothing but time on his hands, especially during the writer's strike that happened last year, when he wasn't theoretically allowed to work at any of the projects that he says that he's a part of. But when we go and see the actual input that he has, well, you kind of wonder, like, what exactly is he doing? Okay, and apparently it's not listening to fan theories on the internet, which, yeah, there are many, and I enjoy quite a lot of them, actually, to be completely fair. People finishing the story better than George ever could. Alt-Shift-X, Glidus, a few of the guys that I just listened to, I know off the top of my head. I know there's a bunch of other ones that are out there, but they do expert breakdowns, very fun theory videos, and all things considered, that entire collective, Game of Thrones YouTube, has pretty much figured out where things are going to be going. Okay, they've connected the dots to a point where if George would just simply look at the YouTube space, which I understand, like, this is the way that I also approach news content, or however the hell you want to categorize what I do. I don't watch other people's stuff. I don't want to be influenced by this. But then again, I'm actually fairly consistent. You know, it's been 4 years and I've released 3 videos every day for those 4 years, whether or not I was struck on the channel or not. You know, just take a look over at Rumble and I'll fill in the gaps wherever there is. But basically, you could just, you know, figure out what makes sense, because I would imagine he has a storyline in mind for the conclusion of the Lady Stoneheart stuff, who's eventually going to take her out. What's going to happen with the resurrection of Jon Snow? How's the battle for Winterfell going to play out? Is young Griff a Blackfire? Is he going to sit the throne? How's Daenerys eventually going to go insane? Is Bran going to sit the throne at the end of it? I would imagine he would have rough ideas about how it all worked out, which I would imagine we've probably seen in the later stages of Game of Thrones. There's just a much more elegant way to get there, and a lot of those fan theories out there plug the gaps pretty well, because they've had nothing but time to chew on all of this material. And so, yes, George R.R. Martin confessed to avoiding going on fan forum pages and the internet for fear that he might discover someone has already cracked the code on his novel. Well, he hasn't finished it, so how can he lay claim to those ideas if they've been fleshed out better than he has been able to put pen to paper on? He's also staying away from it to avoid getting inspiration from other people's ideas. Well, yeah, heaven forbid you get inspiration to finish the damn book, you fat bastard, because it's not like you're working on anything else. But apparently, remember, guys, okay, because the last time we talked about this, we talked about George admitting, yeah, I'm probably never going to finish the book, or maybe I am, because now you got the publisher speaking out and saying, yeah, we paid this fat bastard a gigantic advance, so yeah, you're damn well right, he is still working on the books. But Publishing Insider clears up a rumor about the status of Winds of Winter. Author Sean Speakman clarify some things he said about how Winds of Winter, the next book, sure, in George R. R. Martin's The Song of Ice and Fire series, might have to be published. All right. As I probably don't need to tell you, Winds of Winter is a long-coming sixth book in the George R. R. Martin Song of Ice and Fire adapted by Game of Thrones, by HBO, as Game of Thrones. Martin has been working on this thing for 13 years. It's so nice for you to think that he's been working on it for 13 years. He might have worked on it for a couple, maybe. But anyways, ever since The Dance with Dragons came out in 2011. Yes, the Say fans are starved for updates is a vast understatement. On the podcast, the Bend the Knee podcast, okay, hosted Jimmy Nuts, I beg your pardon, that talked about something that author Sean Speakman said at Dragonsteel Nexus, okay, a literary event put together by the Stormlight Archives. Author Brandon Sanderson. The latest gathering was held earlier this month. Speakman is the author of the Antiquity Chronicle series, the operator of Grimoaks Press, and someone who works with fantasy author Terry Brooks, known for his Shannara Chronicles. There's a lot of proper nouns going down right here, and I can't make heads or tails of it. I know who Brandon Sanderson is. He's a guy who actually specializes in finishing other people's work, but in the case of Robert Jordan and A Wheel of Time, he was actually dying and looking for somebody to properly finish the books that he had already outlined for him. Meanwhile, you've got George over there. It's like, shut up, I don't owe you anything. So yes, he has connections to the publishing industry, and that's why fans perk up when he says something about GRRMs and the Winds of Winter. On Terry Brooks, anyways, at Dragonsteel, Speakman, or rather, this is Speakman, okay? He just works with Terry Brooks. My mistake. Allegedly gave his take on the status of Winds of Winter, so I try to respect George's space and not ask him directly. But I know how many pages have been sent to Harper Voyager. I know how many pages he's roughly gotten completed otherwise. I talk to his editor, Anne Grohl, probably monthly, and I know how many pages they can physically put in a book. So split it in two. Put out the stuff that you have right now, and then do with the rest of what you will, okay? He is either at that amount or nearly. Oh, interesting. So it's more about whether they will convince him to split Winds in, or if he will hold out for the ending that he has always been wanting to do, that he hasn't got around with in 13 years. Yeah, so basically, Speakman is saying that Martin may have written too many pages for Winds of Winter to fit them into one book. Yeah, because last year's update at the tail end of 2023, we heard that he actually lost or trimmed or edited out 100 pages. Oh, okay, cool. So he made addition by subtraction. So that means there should be some tangible movement in 2024. Oh, wait. Yeah, no, shut up if I don't finish it. You don't know how I work. You don't know how busy I am. I'm working on so many TV shows, and there might be a Maisie Williams spinoff where we find out where Arya Strong ended up going. She was sailing west, and she wanted to know what was west of Westeros. It's actually Essos, but have fun with that, okay? Because the world is round. Big spoiler on that one. But there's also supposed to be a Game of Thrones adjacent movie. Is it going to be the Jon Snow sequel that ended up getting sidelined? Is it? Hopefully. Well, actually, I'd be excited about this one. But the Aegon's Conquest project that was greenlit earlier this year, something like that. Is it something like that? Because yes, a man of his age and stature and work ethic has a lot on his plate, and outside of Game of Thrones, move into that, he's also done some work on Elden Ring, which also had a big update this year in the form of Shadow of the Erdtree. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure how many units of Elden Ring would have shipped because of the inclusion of George writing some of the lore for a game. Might have helped, might not have. From Software was already a known quantity. Elden Ring was, the latest in a long running line of well-received games that they have put out in the 21st century. So it's tough to really say, but he worked and did a fair amount of work on the project. Okay, but when it came to Shadow of the Erdtree, DLC director comments on George R.R. Martin's involvement, well, this kind of lets me know, and it makes me ask a question. What exactly is George doing? From Software has commented on George R.R. Martin's involvement in Shadow of the Erdtree, confirming that the upcoming DLC, this was written way back in the day, will once again feature lore that famous author has penned for the studio. However, the Japanese developer did not actually bring back George R.R. Martin to specifically work on the upcoming Elden Ring expansion. So yeah, everything that can tie back to the original game that he did work on back in 2022, well, that's when it released. So back in probably 2020, when he was ripe with TDS and locking himself away because he was big scared about the common cold. But what, he was too busy to come back for this gigantic DLC? Very strange, huh? But there's also another Elden Ring project on the horizon in 2025, perhaps. And we know, George hasn't been afforded enough time to work on his books. Perhaps he's passing some notes along to the writer's room at House of the Dragon and also Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. That should take up literal hours of his time every week. Could he be working on Elden Ring Nightreign? Well, no, it's made without George R.R. Martin. Oh, big shock on that one. Just kind of letting you know that his inclusion, it's not really that necessary. What exactly did he do to begin with? One of the biggest surprises revealed at the Game Awards 2024 was, yes, a Nightreign announcement. But Game of Thrones writer George R.R. Martin, oh, he could also be working on that Game of Thrones game that was announced, which I actually, like I said, man, like as hard as I am on this fat, lazy piece of shit, I am excited about the stuff that he puts out, or at least the stuff that's put out that is inspired by his previous work, because he's not doing any current work. That game, if it's a proper RPG, could be a hell of a lot of fun, because it looks like it's set after the events of Season 6 when, you know, things, at least in my opinion, have already went for a steep drop-off in quality. But if you're going to be redoing the events of Seasons 7 and 8, I'm kind of down for that, because that's where everything really picks up. Big set piece battles. That could be really fun. But it could also be like a lot of other Game of Thrones games, which are not exactly worthy to write home of. I forget who's working on that game. But anyways, developer From Software previously confirmed Elden Ring 2 was off the table, but a spin-off game set in the same universe were alluded to. The team managed to keep Nightreign a secret for the most part. Yeah, nobody heard about that at all. And yeah, it wasn't that long before that announcement that From Software said, yeah, we're not working on Elden Ring 2. No, it's not on the table. We got other things to work about. To work on. Elden Ring was first released, yes, in 2022. Tarnished, Elden Lords, blah blah blah, a bunch of crap like that. I don't like any of it. I don't like the lore. I don't like any of these Souls games. They aren't for me. Not speaking on their quality. I see them played, and it just, I don't know, it looks like a gigantic waste of time. But if you like them, that's fine. Just go do you. Here I am pissing off, you know, the George haters, which are just, oh, they're vociferous online, and they love to swarm every video that I do on the topic whenever I'm justifiably critical. This fat, lazy, entitled man. But also the Souls simps that are out there. It's like, there's good games that are out there that you don't have to dodge roll around like a spurg. Like, you can go play those. But anyways, after confirming Nightreign's story, it would be completely standalone but coexist alongside the base game's narrative, Junya Isesaki, the game's director, by the way, also revealed, yeah, Martin had no influence on their spin-off story or world. Oh, so yeah, it's under the Elden Ring banner. We wanted to try something experimental where you have 3-player co-op, or you can play the game single player, but 2-player co-op, go to hell. No, we ain't doing that. This is designed for 3 people and 1 person. It's like, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, instead of doing something different, they just put it under Elden Ring, but it has nothing to do with the world or the story. Despite the DLC being based on the writer's lore from the first game, yes, Martin had no involvement in Shadow of the Erdtree development either. So I ask you this question in closing. What exactly is George doing? Because he's not working on video games. He's barely working, as we've heard before, previous this year. Go take a look at those older videos. He doesn't really do a lot in regards to scripting or working on the story for his TV projects. So what is eating up all his time, besides eating, that is keeping him away from the books? I'd love for them to be finished. I'd love for at least Winds to come out, because Dream of Spring it's going to stay that way. A definite dream. Somebody else is going to have to finish that book. I don't want him to die. I want him to live as a long and healthy of a life as he possibly can. But we got to wrestle with reality. We can't live with the world the way that we want it to be. We can't live with should, could, and woulds. We have to live with the world the way that it is. And what I see right now is somebody squandering what is left of his time on Earth, and everybody is waiting bated breath for him to finish one series, because, oh yeah, that Knight of the Seven Kingdoms series, yeah, it's also another collection of stories that doesn't have a definitive end. So don't get too invested in that book adaptation, because we've seen what happened before. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.